Ted Reyes,
Brandon Ferkel,
Daniel,
and Sylvia.
And today we're going to be presenting to you Volkswagen's emissions deception. Whoopsie. So, part of our agenda, we'll be discussing a little bit of the overview, administrative flop, software tricks, financial plummet, supply chain broken, false advertising. So a bit of the overview. So recently Volkswagen has been caught up in a scandal where they've been deceiving the EPA of emitting over 40 times more of the emissions of nitrogen oxide. This has damaged the consumer trust, and they're facing extreme, very extreme legal action.
Okay, so how do you find out there's a problem? Who comes up with this stuff? Okay, so the International Committee of Clean Air Transportation actually was the one that requested a perquisition. They wanted to know more about the emissions, to compare cars. Okay, which car is doing better? Randomly selected, of course, they chose a Volkswagen, a Mercedes, and a BMW. Randomly selected. So, unfortunately, Volkswagen was unlucky to get one of theirs that was not working right. So, Daniel Carters is the person that conducted this test, okay? He is 45-year-old. You would never consider him to be the person that destroyed one of the biggest companies in the world. With $50,000, 5-member engineer team, he opened a can of worms that nobody knew about. However, this was not done in a year. It was not done in months. This took a lot of time and preparation. So, this is the timeline. The request actually came in the end of 2012. By spring 2013, they started doing the test. By the end of summer 2013, all the tests were done on different cars. They did not just test one because they didn't want to get a bad car from the patch. You want to test more than just one. It took them 1 year to do the report, to actually do the calculations, to do the different things that makes them actually write the report. In March 21st, 2014 is when it first came out to the public by a graduation student of the name was Mark. And in September 2018, that's when we all found out about the EPA. But as you can tell, this has been going on for almost 3 years.
Now we're going to go into a bit of the tech side of things when it comes to Volkswagen's software. So this software wasn't created by accident. This piece of software was meticulously made to be able to pass the emissions test. Now the way that this worked was that the NOx trap was able to be able to trap all the emissions when there was more fuel being utilized. Now, the way that the software responded to the test is when the software knew that it was being tested and more fuel was being put into the exhaust system, it would trap the nitrogen oxide and would be able to pass the test. Now, when we look at the illustration here, we can see how the computer system, which is the system which is right there next to the windshield, and then the NOx trap, which is right there, that little gasket right there is where the emissions was trapped. Now, only diesel engine vehicles had this special type of system embedded into their system. This way, they were able to save better, or have better fuel economy, but yet be able to emit all the contaminations into the environment.
Now I'm going to do the financial aspect of it. Currently, Volkswagen is looking at about $7.3 billion worth of recalls. Now, the last year's earnings, they've earned about $200 million in profit. So that's going to just completely destroy anything that we're going to make this year, as well as the next 4 to 5 years for this recovery. They have about 500,000 cars with about $18 billion in fines from EPA, lawsuits, class actions. They're also facing criminal prosecution, not only in the United States, but other countries like Germany, which is where they're produced. 34 billion in shares have fallen, so all the shareholders that had stock in Volkswagen now have completely lost half of what they had with Volkswagen and completely ruined the image of Volkswagen. Volkswagen has rigged about 500,000 diesel cars, so that's going to be that's just in the United States alone. That doesn't include Europe and other countries like Asia. Another thing that Volkswagen is now facing is that they own Audi, but Audi is an entity within Volkswagen, and Audi is actually suing Volkswagen as a class action because Audi has diesel engines, even though they're not designed by Volkswagen. They have now damaged Audi's image because consumers are just assuming that Volkswagen gave them the same plans for the diesel engines, so thus now they're losing sales in their diesel engine cars. And Volkswagen has only admitted to about 11 million vehicles having this issue, even though it's more. The government of Germany is actually asking that to fix this problem, just to be transparent with the people, not only in the United States, but in Germany. This right here is going to show you what the stock did that day. It opened about $131.25 that day, and it dropped nearly 30%. $30 or 18%, which was more than half, and it closed that evening at, I believe, it was about $131. It closed per share.
How will the Volkswagen scandal affect the automotive supply chain? It will not only affect the company itself, but also the suppliers and its customers. In the United States, Volkswagen has already stopped the sales of defective vehicles, which is about 23% of all the cars sold. Now, a worldwide recall hasn't happened yet, but if it's going to happen, it's going to affect entirely the structure of Volkswagen's supply chain. Now, this company is a global company, meaning they make cars in Japan, Brazil, all over the world. So, meaning that in those countries, small suppliers are going to be affected as well, especially if Volkswagen factories contribute to a large majority of the local economy. Now, you're going to have, because of the Volkswagen scandal, you're going to have worried customers, or has created a fear among customers. So you're going to have obvious questions like, how will this affect me personally and financially? Or will my car be taken away from me? So those are questions that you don't want, as a company, you don't want your customers to have. So the next step for this company is to find a way to regain the trust of its former and future customers. Now, size doesn't matter. Well, small companies are going to be affected as well as large companies. Some independent suppliers have 1 or 2 contracts with large automakers. So if the demand continues to decline, it's difficult to see how will these small suppliers going to survive. But is there any positive side from all of this issue? There are a few. For example, some catalyst manufacturers may not have a higher demand of making more complex units due to tighter regulations. Also, some independent suppliers may have a chance of getting a contract with large automakers, as they will be reevaluating their supplies and looking for more viable options.
I will be discussing Volkswagen marketing strategy. As you can see above, that picture right there is the Volkswagen van that was in one of the Cars movies, and that's part of them putting their brand out there, as well as they host and sponsor events all nationwide and around the world. One of the events is the Volkswagen sign, and then you have the drive event. Thousands of people attend these events, and it's a great way to get them noticed. They also purchase commercial segments in the Super Bowl, which allows them to get into the home of millions of people. After the problem was, after everyone became aware of the problem, Volkswagen decided to create some incentives in which allowed them to gain back the trust that they once had, which include 3 different things. One being the $500 prepaid Visa card, which allowed them to purchase anything they wanted, and then the $500 dealership card, which they could buy accessories for their vehicles or anything they wanted from the dealership. And then you had the 24-hour roadside assistance, which was good for 3 years.
In conclusion, the government of Germany just wants transparency. They just want Volkswagen to come out with an official statement stating that what they were doing was wrong. Next would be an official recall of all the Volkswagen cars that have been affected by this. Third would be incentives offered at the dealerships, and last would be software modification and maybe standardization of the software being put in this vehicle. And in conclusion, Volkswagen Dust problem is the biggest issue.
Volkswagen Dust problem.
Volkswagen was the problem. That's the whole model.